My name's John Jordan. I'm the editor-at-large at a website called Pocket Gamer. But it's not about me tonight. I guess we have 2 spare seats here, so it's about Meet the Developers. Big round of applause. These are the guys who make Angry Birds. So it's Jami and Mika.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
So it's pretty kind of simple kind of setup today. We're going to talk for about 20 minutes. You guys are going to kind of show your latest product. And we'll find out a bit more about the game and a bit more about Rovio. And we'll have time for questions, obviously. I'm sure you guys have lots of questions. So do we want to kick it off with the trailer? Is that what we're going to go for? Yep, OK. So this is Angry Birds Go, which is live now on 5 app stores around the world. Looking good. So actually, before we start, I realised I should probably formally introduce you, because you look like kind of 2 Finnish guys wearing Angry Birds kind of jackets. So
we look pretty much the same, right?
No, you don't look the same, but your jacket. So this is Jami Laes, who's who's the executive vice president of games. Sounds important. Do you want to quickly say what actually you do as a job?
Well, I play games and build games all day. No, actually, I don't. I mean, it's these guys who actually build the games. But, all the games business at Rovio reports to me. So everything from our internal games and Rovio Stars, published games as well, is what I work on.
And then over here on the other side, we've got Mika Rahko, and you're the executive producer of Angry Birds Go. That's your title at the moment, at least.
Yeah, that's right. So I have like a creative responsibility over the game, and I work as like a hub above the game, communicating with different departments at Rovio, and making sure that everyone is aligned and has the latest information about where we are.
Okay. So I think a bit later on we'll talk maybe a bit about kind of what Rovio's up to and what a games company does these days. Because I mean, you're actually not a games company; you're an entertainment company. I should get that right. It's a bit different, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're not only about games anymore, of course. What started, exactly 4 years ago with the original Angry Birds. This is actually our 4th birthday, how we call it, 11th of December, as a single mobile game, is now really an entertainment company. And you can see it from the hoodies and the totes and the consumer products and the video and animation, what we saw just there as well. So it's a lot more than just about the game. But today we're more talking about the game, of course.
Yeah, I guess so we should point out that unlike most games companies, all that animation is done in-house at Rovio. So you guys kind of, a long time ago now, bought a Finnish company, and they do all your animations, and you have your tunes kind of channel and animated movie and all the kind of other stuff you're doing as well.
Well, most of the stuff is done internally, but some of it we outsource. Same thing with the game as well. Like we'd work with a great partner, Exient, here in the UK at Oxford with Angry Birds Go as well. So pretty much from the start, Rovio has always worked with external developers as well, whether it's games or whether it's animation. So we don't do everything alone, but we have all the in-house capabilities. But we do so many things that we always need help from great partners.
I think it's always funny when a company like Rovio, who has 800 people, still can't do everything internally, I guess.
Yeah, it happens.
You're all very busy, though. So let's talk a bit about Angry Birds Go. So I guess this is kind of more your line, kind of, Mika. So it's a downhill racer. That's kind of what we're calling it. So what's the thinking behind that? Obviously, there's 7 Angry Birds games out there. They've all kind of been different theme, but kind of the same gameplay. So how kind of radical is it a decision to go, we've done slingshot games, we're going to do a kart racer?
Yeah, we set out to do something really ambitious and cool with the brand, and we wanted to take the characters that everyone loves, and there's so much depth into them in them to another type of game, and well, we started to look what could be a cool concept, and kind of like once we came up with the concept of kart racer, we were like, okay, how can we make this really cool and fun? And we came up with the downhill concept. So that's kind of where we started from.
Let me just interrupt you there. So you've got karts and you've got racing. There's been a few games over the years involving karts and racing. Some of them involving Italian plumbers. But you've taken a pretty different approach. So obviously we've all played Mario Kart. We've all kind of done track-based racing. So, I mean, was it because Mario Kart is so well known you thought we'll do something different? Or, I mean, what was the thinking exactly behind that?
I just think that it works so well on a mobile device that we have it as a downhill. There's no need for like more complicated controls. You can steer it very easily. It works very well on the devices out there. and well, and also the length of the races, they work as kind of like bite-sized entertainment. You can do one race while waiting on a bus or while being on a bus. So that's kind of the thinking where we started to develop the downhill concept.
I think that's something, if you talk to mobile developers, that's something that kind of, they all talk about, this kind of idea of kind of bite-sized entertainment. So the session lengths, I mean, what kind of time do you look, what's the longest kind of session or the longest kind of race? Is it a couple of minutes?
Yeah, it's like a couple of minutes. You start out from about 30 seconds, but once you get further in the game, you will have like longer and longer races. But still, the longest races are even like a few minutes long. So, but of course, you can do many of those within one session as well.
Okay, so we've been talked a bit about the background of the game. It's probably a good time to, if you guys are going to do a demo.
So yeah, Angry Birds Go. We're in the main menus here, and obviously we have the Toons TV here as well. But let's hit play. And we set up the game in 4 different types of episodes, and each one of them have their like unique kind of tracks and unique kind of gameplay. Let's hit Seed Bay first. It's the first one.
So you've actually kind of progressed a bit through this game. So
Yeah,
do you maybe
that's
want to
true.
explain a bit, kind of for people who are kind of playing it for the first time exactly, because they won't have this kind of tricked out car.
That's true. So this is actually Jami's device. So Jami has played it quite a while actually already.
Only a couple of days.
Good job, good job. So Jami has played through the first episode, and he's just starting on the second episode here. So and he has some cool stuff here coming up still. But let's go to the first episode first. And this is kind of the main hub of the game inside of all the episodes. So you have your cart there, you have your current racer there, and you have mechanic pick here. And you can tap actually mechanic pick, and he'll tell you cool hints. But basically, you can upgrade your cart here, and then we have a showroom where you can see other kind of cards that you can buy. Let's go with this one though, because Jami has already upgraded a little bit. And then we have a character selection up here. So all the other different characters are here, and you can select them as racers. But let's go with red first. So let's hit forward and go to the first race here and hit go. So we've kind of like created a lot of variety with different kind of game modes in all of the tracks. So we have race, we have time attack, and we have fruit rush, and then we have versus mode. And this is now a race where you're racing against
And
other
there's the
birds and
slingshot.
pigs. And that's the slingshot. Here we go. Stella used an ability already. She's got the bubble ability, and now I was just like spun out by bomb there. And this is kind of the way we've structured the game as well. All of the characters are they have their own tracks, and they have like they're like boss fights there. And once you beat them, you actually unlock them as characters, and then you start seeing them inside the races as well as an opponents. So it constantly kind of like adds more depth into the game. The further you progress, the more depth you have in the races as well. And it gives you like kind of like good reason to go back and do the previous races and fruit modes and so on as well once you've like unlocked the next characters. And we have this challenge mode up here as well, but that's like end game content. Once you progress through the events, you can start do challenges there to improve your score. And 3 stars.
Do you want to show the telepods? Okay. How we bridge kind of physical and digital worlds together in our games. Well, we started with the Angry Birds Star Wars originally, and are doing with Angry Birds Go as well. So you have some telepods there down on the floor. So what the telepods enable to do is that you can actually buy those physical toys, and then you can scan them into the game, like Mika is doing right here. So putting them on top of the camera on the telepod podium, and it scans them in, and you get them right into the game, and then you get to race with that.
And that's exactly the same card that I had here in my hand. So now you have the digital representation of the toy right there in the game, and we can start racing with it. And since we haven't progressed into this episode yet, you won't see all the game modes when you use the telepod in here, but we're now actually getting a sneak peek of the upcoming content using the telepod in a form of versus mode. And let's hit go.
But if you would have progressed there, you could use that same card in all the races,
Yes.
just as you wanted.
Yes. Okay, we're racing against Terrence here.
So you can't talk now? The stunt track is too hard
I need
for
to
you?
focus, yes. So
Yeah.
obviously the later tracks, they're getting much faster and much longer. This is actually one of my favorites. There's a lot of like ramps, and there's even, well, I won't spoil it. You'll see it soon. Here we go, big jump. Let's use our ability here. So all of the different birds and pigs also have their unique characters, unique abilities. For red, it's a boost. For bomb, it's obviously like explodes, and he can span out. Well, here we go. Hoopy loop. It's my favorite part of the track. Sorry, I got distracted. So yeah, for bomb, he explodes. King Pig, he uses those balloons. Yeah, you actually saw in the trailer as well. He's kind of cheating a bit, and so on. I won't tell all of the abilities. You'll have to wait and play and wait and see. Let's see if I can not crash too much. So this is one of the longest track as well because well, it's very end game already. Here we go. Number 1 made it.
Did you get 3 stars this time as well?
Let's see. Only 1.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah. really excited about this game, and I think it's a good sign when you developed it for yourself, like for a long time already, and I still can't put it down. Every morning when I wake up, I pick up the device and play a couple of races. So I'm really excited about it.
So I mean, I guess it's the first time you've made an Angry Birds game that's not about kind of the trajectory, but it's also I mean, hopefully it's not going to be kind of too industry for you here, but it's your first free-to-play game, so that's kind of been the big shift that's happened to, I mean, throughout games, but certainly for mobile games over the last kind of 18 months, kind of year, that games basically now, you download them for free, you can play them for free, but there's certain kind of things you can either kind of play through and unlock and earn, or if you want to kind of spend some money, you can kind of spend money to get those things quicker. So it's your first game that does that. I mean, you've had in-app purchases for most of your games, but they've all been kind of paid games before. So can you talk a little bit about how you've kind of approached doing free-to-play? Because obviously has been some kind of controversy about whether people are spending too much money or whether game developers are locking things away so you have to pay. What's the Rovio approach to free-to-play?
Yeah, so our approach is definitely approaching it from a point of view that we provide amazing experience for the players that want to play it for free. And so that's really been like in the core of our design of the game constantly all throughout the development. And that's what we are constantly also iterating as well, that if there's something that we see that, okay, it doesn't work that well, we'll of course address and change that. But we want to kind of provide a really good experience and value propositions for the players that want to play it for free. And if you do want to spend some money to enjoy it even more, that's fine as well. But it's the core is that we provide amazing experience for the free players.
We have a couple of core values, how we kind of think about providing entertainment overall, and especially games, is that we always want to delight the fan. And the way we kind of think about it in free-to-play is that it needs to be the best time you've ever spent. And if you want to pay for something, it needs to be the best money you've ever spent. So you need to feel like you wanted to do that. It was actually something awesome that you wanted to get in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I play a lot of free-to-play games, and I think it's interesting that sometimes for the game, I quite enjoy grinding. I could spend money, but I actually just quite enjoy earning stuff, even though it takes me more time. And for some games, you just kind of go, I really want that thing quite quickly. I think it can depend very much on the game, obviously the individual as well. I mean, can you quickly, Mika, just kind of, because there's a few mechanics here. So obviously in the top left-hand corner here, you've got that plus sign. So that's do you want to quickly explain the kind of the currencies? You've got like what they say, a soft currency and a hard currency. So. Yeah,
so we have bird coins as a soft currency. That's the currency that you get a lot constantly when you play the game. You might have seen there that I was picking up the coins while I was racing, and I got them as a reward as well. And you actually get some even if you kind of fail the race. And that you can use to upgrade your card, to make it better in order to progress in the game. And then we have gems, which you can also get from the game. They occasionally pop up in the tracks. It's actually interesting to see like what players do in that situation. Like everyone's always, oh, there's a gem, let's go for
I have
it.
to say, I've been playing it, and as soon as I see a gem, I just drive straight towards it.
Yeah.
Does it always make the right decision for you for that track?
No, because then sometimes I lose. But
Yeah, it's those kind of interesting decisions that we wanted to try with that as well. So with gems, you can purchase extra abilities. So you might have seen that I was using my Redbird ability there for free once per race, but you can use up to 5 if you purchase them with gems. Or you can actually convert them to coins as well to upgrade even faster. So those are the different currencies we have.
I have to say that there's another kind of nice touch that I think you've done that I've not seen in other games kind of yet. So you have energy as a kind of a mechanic. So in the top, I guess, right-hand corner, if you guys can see there's the is it 5? But you have kind of five sessions for that character. But if you go up, you have, as you unlock characters, each of them has their own energy bar. So effectively, you have, every time you unlock a character, you gain another energy bar. So, I mean, what was the thinking behind that? Did you see that from other games, or was that something you guys just kind of thought, oh, that's a really Angry Birds thing to do?
This was a unique idea from the team. I've never seen a game do this before, and our thinking was completely different actually here than with the other energy mechanics. We wanted to kind of like encourage players to play with all of the birds, to explore their abilities and find different ways of beating different game modes with different birds and so on. So we were like approaching it from that angle rather than just like limiting the play session. And this also, once you unlock more and more birds, you will have like longer and more to play with. So I really like the system, and I think it feels quite right. And but the main driver behind it was just like gameplay, that we wanted players to like explore and find the different birds for different races, which works best for which game mode and so on.
And really offer another kind of tactical or strategic layer of choice for the players that is going to allow them to enjoy more.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. So Angry Birds Go's released now. So you're off on holiday, are you, for the rest of the year? So it's all done now, is it?
No, not yet.
What's the plan? How does it work? Because it used to be once you released the game, you made it for PlayStation, it went in GameStop or wherever the retailer was, and then all the developers went away on holiday for like a month.
Yeah, not us. These are games as services. All Rovio games are, and we're already working on some really cool stuff for the upcoming updates, and we are going to add multiplayer aspects to the game as well. So that's already in the pipeline. So there will be a lot of cool stuff coming to the game for free.
Good. So it was good to hear what's happening there. So maybe going back to you kind of now, Jami, talking about the whole kind of Rovio. So you have, I think it's 7 Angry Birds. Is this the 8th Angry Birds game? Or
this is the 8th Angry Birds game on mobile.
So that's a lot of games. I mean, you have, I guess, a few hundred developers working on that. But I mean, how do you, as someone who's kind of overseeing that, I mean, how do you kind of manage those teams? I mean, that's quite a lot of people, and as Mika said, there's kind of updates going live all the time, and you have to kind of, you're still supporting the first game. I mean, how do you just kind of handle that and kind of make sure everything's working properly?
Well, of course, we got different departments, and we're broken into a kind of studio network. So we got 4 different studios, or 3 in Finland and 1 in Stockholm, our internal studios, and then our external partners. And we got different people looking at products or games that are in very early stages, like ideation and concepting and pre-production. And production is then kind of a different part of the organization who's really looking into that. And now in the world of free-to-play, it doesn't end there. So the live operations, the live service aspect, updating the game, continues still with the same team. But then some of our games have shifted between teams. It's very hard to keep the same people for 4 years working on the same game. You need to kind of switch horses every once in a while to keep the ideas fresh and let people work on something else. So we kind of take turns and manage it actively, that who works on what, so that we keep their developers' minds fresh and can deliver the greatest possible content that we can.
So Rovio and Angry Birds are kind of synonymous. Kind of, there's not kind of one without the other. You've released one non-Angry Birds game, kind of since Angry Birds got big, but that was kind of a remake of someone else's game. In 2014, can you say anything about whether you'd make non-Angry Birds games, or now you've made the first karting game for Angry Birds? Could Angry Birds do other things? Is there anything you can?
What I can say for sure in
any secrets, basically, if I'm asking.
No, I can't reveal any secrets, even though we're between friends here. But 2014, we're going to see a more balanced diet of birds and pigs and more, or chicken, pork, and vegetarian, if you will. So we will be taking the birds and the pigs to different gameplay patterns, different genres, different places. Still true to the brand and the same characters, maybe some new introductions. We are actually working really hard on completely new stuff as well. But I can't promise it's going to happen in 14 because we're not building these things for 100 days, but for hundreds of years. So we're in no rush to bring completely new stuff out to the market. We want to make sure that it's absolutely the right thing to do before we commit to any street dates in front of friends to the new things.
And I guess something that's kind of a bit of a halfway house is this year you kind of announced this Rovio Stars, which I don't know if people see, but that's kind of Rovio's kind of publishing arm. So that's you go out and kind of look for kind of cool games that completely separate companies are making and then publish them. So, I mean, obviously you've got enormously successful games internally. Why? What's the advantage of publishing? Why would you kind of spend some of your resources publishing other people's games, publicizing other people's games?
Well, we wouldn't be here ourselves either without having a publisher at one point. We were a developer at some point as well, and then moved up the ladder and grew over the years, over the success of Angry Birds. So we want to give something back to the developer community as well. And there are a lot of great games out there. So we want to really kind of selectively get a couple of great games out there and help publish them and get the traction and them to get their limelight with our cross-promotional leverage, our fan base that we have, etc. And with Angry Birds and all the kind of effort that it takes to do all the things that we want to do with that and some of the new stuff that we're working, there are some gameplay genres that we just don't have time to get ourselves. So it's great to find great developers who have great games and be able to help them together to get those games out to the market in a bigger way.
Because I guess with Angry Birds, you've done like a racing game, but it's kind of hard. I don't know if you can answer this question. It's kind of hard to see Angry Birds shooter. I mean, could there be obviously you could make an Angry Birds shooter. It's kind of possible, but that kind of thing probably wouldn't fit within the kind of we call it the Angry Birds universe, or the kind of how would you describe it?
Yeah, Angry Birds universe or Angry Birds franchise. I mean, never say never, but FPS seems pretty much a big stretch right now for the brand. I mean, Angry Birds is fairly four-quadrant brand. I mean, all the way from the 99-year-olds to kids alike, and males and females, etc.
So when you say 4 quadrants, you mean all ages and all?
Yeah, old, young, male, female, 4 quadrants like that. But never say never, but there are a lot more obvious things where the brand really can show its power and provide some very delightful experiences for kind of a subset of our huge fan base that we have. Kind of casual racing or soapbox derby or whatever you want to call it is one of those. And there are some other obvious ones that we're already working on that you will see, come next year.
So with this kind of concept, this 4 quadrant, game developers love to talk these kind of like technical things. They make up things, 4 quadrants. Is Angry Birds Go? Is that how many quadrants is that? And
what's your answer, Mika, to that?
I think we're educating some people here, like into the casual racing genre. So we're hoping to get 4 quadrant. Maybe in the beginning we aren't because the players haven't played some of the quadrants, these types of games. But hopefully this will turn a lot of players into kart racing fans as well.
So I guess you're thinking initially it's going to be more kind of teenage, kind of male kind of audience. I guess that would be what we would think.
I think there's a lot of female fans as well. I have like quite a lot of gamer female friends that are big Mario Kart fans as well. So I think that they will love this type of game. And obviously there are some like characters in the franchise that like Matilda and Stella for even like younger girls. So it'll be interesting to see. I think it has like a lot of potential to attract a lot of different players from all of those groups.
4 years ago, you wouldn't have thought that there's going to be 2 billion downloads of a physics puzzler either. So a lot of people have been educated more in different genres of games. And I think that there's more and more people nowadays ready for more and more different types of games than just their usual cup-button team.
Yeah, kind of when you had when you were playing the game, it's something that a lot of games use now, but you kind of had your score and then your kind of friend scores as well. So kind of obviously kind of Facebook's massive now and Twitter and all these kind of game center things like that. How do you integrate those into the game? What's because they're pretty powerful in terms of if I'm playing a game and then someone who doesn't really know about games might get an invite from me or that kind of thing.
Yeah, so you can invite other players. We're using Facebook right now, but of course we're looking into other social networks as well. And well, the social leaderboards, I think it's a little bit more kind of core gamer mechanic. At least it works very well within the studio. So we're constantly battling with the scores. Like every morning when I wake up, I'm checking who's ahead me, and then I just need to beat their score. So I think it works very well for certain type of players. Some players just want to progress through the game and unlock all the characters or upgrade their cards. So there's a lot of different things in the game that will appeal to different kind of players, and that's great.
Okay, so we're kind of coming to the end of my questions, so kind of start thinking about your questions. But I guess there's probably some people in the audience kind of would quite like to make games for a living, and I guess you guys have careers making games. So what kind of advice would you kind of give to people who are kind of interested in making games? And what, I mean, obviously now it's a proper career. There's lots of different types of kind of skill sets, lots of different kind of roles. What kind of advice would you give people who are kind of interested in that line of work?
At least for me, how it started was just really start making games, even if before you have any kind of a position or any kind of opportunity at an actual company, whether it's modding or demoing or just coding or doing art or designing levels or writing concepts, whatever is your discipline and where you're good at, or just do mock reviews of games and breakdown games and stuff like that. Really, just start doing it before you have any kind of a job in a company or anything, because sooner or later you'll just figure out that actually all the work that you've been just toying around on your own free time actually is quite valuable whenever you start to look for your entry-level position. And of course, if you happen to live in a city or a country where you can actually get some kind of formal schooling that goes into games, that's great, or engineering or art for that matter as well. So I don't think there's no kind of silver bullet. You just need to start working towards that through education and training yourself.
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is actually just playing other games as well, and that's the fun part. You kind of constantly educating yourself when you are playing other games out there, and I often need to remind my parents now that look, that actually was useful what I did when I was a teenager, like playing a lot of games. I get to use that every day at work, so great.
Does she believe you now? Because my grandmother doesn't, that I'm actually working.
I think she does now, yeah.
I mean, it's always sometimes a bit dangerous to ask, but I mean, how did you guys get into the industry? Did you go kind of through kind of a school program, or did you guys just kind of hack around on stuff?
I was making games at home first, and all of my projects at school, like coding projects and university projects, were about games. I'm just always been fascinated about them, and then I applied at Rovio 2010 spring and got in as a programmer, and I worked my way up from there.
Pretty similar. I started coding as well when I was like 12 or 13, but I wasn't a very good programmer. Still, I went to engineering school and did some games as projects there as well. And I was young and I needed the money, so I went into television, but went back to games. Fortunately, after that, when I was working in TV as a producer for a while.
Good. Okay, so those are some of my questions. I guess you guys probably got things you want to ask them.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. My question is, with so many offices and almost 1,000 people working across everything, how do you think especially the artists and creative people keep this consistency and make everything look as the Angry Birds universe across several games, videos, even external partners? Do you have this kind of initiation process where everyone gets this idea of what they have to do? Can you explain a bit more about that process?
Sure. So we don't have a big initiation ritual or anything like that that's going to teach everybody how to draw Angry Birds or anything like that. But we do have people looking after the brand values and the kind of brand guidelines, style guides, etc., and all of that. And we have brand bibles and a lot of visual style guides about all the different characters, and not just visual, about their characteristics and who they resemble or their kind of normal emotions and all those kinds of things, and expression sheets for all the different birds and pigs and different kinds of rigs that can be reused and in 3D models and stuff like that. So it's just consistency through hard work, so that you build the systems and the organization, the processes, and the materials that allow even external parties to actually work in a consistent way, kind of staying on brand or staying on style. But with Angry Birds Go, we actually went 3D. First time in our games. So we are completely trying to kind of all the time trying to see that is the style that we have the right one, or should we evolve our style or have different styles for different types of entertainment or games for that matter.
Yeah, and I think big part of it is just like communication. Just be very efficient about that. And also that I feel that we have so many passionate people working at Rovio and all the different departments that everyone just cares so much about the characters and that they look great and whatever we do, like whether it's plus or books or animation or games. So that kind of just like drives the communication between the departments and then ensures that the quality of the end products are great.
I guess it's kind of an interesting point that I don't know if the merchandising, you've done so much kind of merchandising, which is obviously 3D, that's kind of helped kind of set the scene for what the 3D kind of world would be like, because you've kind of done all that already with merchandising partners.
That's true in the physical world. Of course, we have a lot of 3D products, but they're still, mostly based on the kind of 2D flat look and feel, where those are kind of driving from. But yeah, we have a lot of 3D models from our characters, etc., just for that matter, so that we can use different poses and different stuff.
I guess it's also talking about the merchandising, which I think is something you guys have done particularly well. I was kind of hadn't really realised that you publish so many books. You've published over 100 books of different kind of Angry Birds type style things, and I guess a lot of people maybe know now there's like an Angry Birds theme park in Finland, but now they're kind of being exported around the world now, and you guys are getting into education and all manner of crazy things.
Yeah, there are kind of three main areas that Rovio has always been interested in, the 3 E's as we call them. Entertainment, the first one, education, the second one, and entrepreneurship, the third one. So, of course, we started from entertainment, but education has been actually something we worked on for many years already. And entrepreneurship, we do a lot of new business venturing ourselves. That's where the theme parks and the soda, etc., has kind of started from. And then they kind of turn into consumer and licensing businesses themselves.
Cool. Good. Anyone else? Oh, there's a man down at the front. If you can pass the mic along. Thank you.
Once you created your first app, what was the few major steps that you took to getting it out to the masses? Like the few major steps that took.
Yeah. So is it from the first Angry Birds game? Yeah. That's, I have to say, I'll quickly say something here, because I kind of remember this, because if it came out 4 years ago, didn't it? And it kind of, I don't know if it's polite to say this, but for the first couple of months, it wasn't very successful, was it, really? It's kind of, am I allowed to say that? Jami's looking a bit nervous at me. So the game came out, I remember it took about 6 months before it really took off, didn't it?
Or like 4 months. It was
4 months,
February, March, when it really started to take off.
Yeah.
And it was originally launched in December 11th, 2009.
Yeah, but I think it was also that the App Store was still kind of in growing phases at that stage. And I think everyone who saw the game loved it immediately. It was so simple. Everyone understood the slingshot, how to use it. And it was a 4Q game from the start. And once people just got aware of the game, it just like slowly picked up and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I still remember it, but I think it was like around April when we hit like US or maybe May US #1. So it was just word of mouth, couple of more like many small things combined that got the traction. And once it got up there in the charts, then of course like boom, it got really huge.
So going back to the gentleman's question, you didn't really do anything clever. You didn't really do like a big marketing campaign. I think it's just kind of word of mouth, really. That
yeah,
like
we did
people going, look at this cool game.
We did a great game. So that's really the answer to that question. It was just so easy to pick up, easy to understand. Everyone were just enjoying the game, and also the characters were like a big part of that. So.
Yeah, there's no gimmick to it or anything that can make your game successful, not even for Angry Birds originally. Of course, even from the early days, I mean, Rovio started to update the game quite frequently by offering new content and was big on initial trailers already back then, which looked very different than the look and feel now actually in the art. But, starting to use multiple medium already at that point in time, and really honing it for the target platform to get that kind of exposure on App Store, so that you pick one platform first and make it great for that, for example. That's usually a good strategy to actually get traction more quickly.
That's true. The initial trailer that Angry Birds was made for Angry Birds, it's still out there on YouTube actually. I don't know how many 100 million hits it has. So that was a huge success in the very beginning already. So that was like kind of one of the key things that got traction for the game as well.
I remember when we first were reviewing it at Pocket Gamer, the guy who reviewed it just loved the music so much. It was just like the thing, I guess that gets in your head, does it? Like that kind of like just kind of can't get it out. But I guess 4 years ago, the mobile games market was very different. As you say, it's kind of pretty much one app store, app store. Much kind of simpler, and Angry Birds was at the right place to just kind of catch that enormous wave of everyone suddenly moving to smartphones, and you were the game that everyone downloaded straight away. So good. There's a question, gentleman there.
Does Angry Birds, does it have universal appeal across all like geographies, or are there like certain countries or areas where you want to do better, or you're still not that familiar with the brand?
Yeah, it's actually quite universal. I mean, Angry Birds has worked really well, and it's very well recognized across the world. I mean, brand recognition is super high in North America, South America, Western, Eastern Europe, Nordic countries, Russia, and big countries in Asia like China, Japan, and Korea are big markets in Asia. It's very well recognized, very globally. And that's mostly, of course, through the game exposure. Having 2 billion downloads doesn't come from UK alone or US alone, etc. It comes from the global footprint and the global kind of fan base that we've been able to build. So yeah, it's very global, the kind of recognition and the love for the brand.
It's a good question, though, because it did particularly well in China. I mean, we kind of talk about kind of localization, which is kind of language, but also kind of culturalization, which is maybe changing the colors of things, or there's certain, kind of cultural things that don't work in one country. I mean, did you have to make any changes, or will kind of colorful birds seem to be something that's accepted everywhere?
Yeah, for China in particular, we didn't do any basic culturalization in the early days. And Angry Birds, the original Angry Birds, didn't have a lot of text either. I mean, it was fairly iconographic and fairly straightforward. So there wasn't even a lot of localization. And because it didn't have any in-application billing or anything, there wasn't any merchandising localization that needed to be done either. So it was pretty much as is. I don't know if we even localized for many years because there wasn't any text or anything that really mattered.
We had localization in there quite early already, but like Jamis was saying, there was so little text. It was basically, credits maybe. The job titles were localized, so I guess that's it.
And that doesn't really help sell games, that job titles and credits are localized.
Yeah. So. But I guess it was with Angry Birds Seasons was kind of, or when you started kind of doing the updates, you were quite quick to do updates for the Chinese market, weren't you? So you were kind of aware from that point of view.
Yeah, Seasons in particular has been really going around the world based on different kind of festivals and different kind of celebrations like Chinese New Year, etc., or Mardi Gras, or Cinco de Mayo or something like that, or Christmas updates. That's been a big focus for Seasons, that it kind of travels around the cultures of the world and speaks to that cultural heritage or content that's happening there. And that's something that we continue to do in the future as well, because it's been very successful for us as well. And that gains a lot of local traction and interest in our partners there when we have something truly culturally localized and something that's huge in China, but maybe not that well recognized in Europe, for example. So, and we have mooncake festivals that we organize in China as well, and our own cakes and everything. So.
I have to say that's the only way I learned when Chinese New Year was happening, was when you do your updates, so that's good.
Glad to be of assistance.
Okay, so we have time for 2 more questions. I think we have one there and a gentleman with glasses behind. We've got 2 more, so you'll be the last one.
Hi. My background is as a developer in television, and but independently of that, my family have been inventing games on a yearly basis for 20 years. So we've got all these games. How would you take a 3-dimensional game and turn it into an app if you were starting from scratch with no background knowledge? I mean, I've got in other areas, but not in that. I'd love any information on that. Would I come to you? Would I go to, what would I do?
That's a great question. Answer that.
You want to take it or should I?
I'm still thinking.
Okay, by 3-dimensional game, do you mean like a board game or a physical game that you...
I mean, just take, I don't know, like take a treasure hunting game.
Okay, yep.
But it's in a 3-dimensional context. So it could be imported quite easily to an app.
Yeah.
But no knowledge, so...
Well, actually, if you can really think about it, most games are actually tied into kind of old play patterns, and by play patterns I mean like child's play patterns. Maybe it's tag, or maybe it's build and destroy, like in a game like Angry Birds, for example, or maybe it's Dollhouse, or maybe it's cops and robbers, those type of things. A lot of them actually drive their inspiration from very core, fundamental play patterns that you do in the physical world. So a game like Treasure Hunt or whatever that you play around the table, it's very easy to just take the kind of core elements of that and think about how you digitize it. First, if you can build it on paper, you can always build it digitally. Kind of concepting, prototyping on paper is a great way for you to, even test the user interfaces. Use a deck of cards or use just paper that you draw things there yourselves, and think what the core elements are and what really goes well directly into the digital aspect of that, and do you need to change something along the way or not? Usually you'll find that you can actually digitize everything, but not everything makes sense in the digital world.
So would I come to you, or would I go to another company? I mean, who would you recommend in the publishing business for someone who's coming with a very experienced media background maybe, but definitely not computing? Where am I going?
Well, usually in publishing programs tend to look at ideas that are more already in development or more kind of ready concepts at least, that already have a game design or a concept, etc. But there are like pitching competitions on the indie scene and stuff like that, where you can go with a very kind of rough idea rather than just a very kind of high-level concept, or an idea that you don't need to have a prototype, you don't need to have a demo, you don't need to have a team or a developer yet or anything. So I would actually maybe think first those, but at least you need to build it on paper for yourself before you can even usually communicate it to a publisher or enter a pitch competition.
Yeah, there are a lot of local development communities that organize these kind of pitching competitions and like game jams and so on. So if you go there with your idea, you might find a couple of other people that like a programmer and an artist, and you might do a prototype in 1 or 2 days, and then you can go and show that to a developer that look, do you see the potential here? So that might be a good way to get started.
Thanks for coming down and sharing some stuff with us. A big round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.